na ba?
Kausap daw po yung stock pot, sasabihan pa lang daw sa senator na bumaba.
Ano, silent prayer na lang. Wala pa sa pila. Ha?
Baba na daw.
Ha? 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 Apa? The 75th session of the Senate in the first regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. May I ask our colleagues to observe a minute of silent prayer? Thank you. The Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Bagong Himig Serenata, will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, after which they'll render a song entitled Dugong Pilipino.
Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisihin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bugaw, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhatit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much. Marami pong salamat sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Bagong Himig Serenata, for that beautiful rendition of our national anthem and the song entitled Dugong Pilipino. Marami pong salamat. The Secretary will now call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Trilon.
17 senators answered the roll call. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, our dear colleagues. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 74th Session, May 21, 2014, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, the reading of the Journal of Session number 74, Wednesday, May 21, 2014, is dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill number 4084 under Committee Report number 27. This bill seeks to grant the Philippine citizenship to Andre Blatch.
Approval of the measure on third reading is in order. The Secretary is directed to call the roll for purposes of nominal voting.
Roll call vote on House Bill number 4084, entitled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Andre Blatch. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Trilon.
Before the chair announces the results of the voting, for purposes of record, Mr. Majority Leader, printed copies of this measure
Yes,
were
Mr.
distributed
President.
when?
For the record, Mr. President, copies of House Bill number 4084 in its final form have been distributed to all senators last Wednesday, May 21, 2014, thereby complying with the 3-day rule found under Article 6, Section 26, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, and the Secretary, Mr. President, have, for the record, read the title of the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Majority Leader. The result of the voting is as follows. There are 20 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4084 is hereby approved on third and final reading.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the, congratulations, thank you to the author and sponsor, Senator Angara, and special thanks to Senator Jinggoy. Even if we lost the last game where he played in the UNTB, he continued to support this bill, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter from Secretary General of the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 19 May 2014, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 1222, an act establishing and maintaining the Office of Veterans Affairs in the Philippine Embassy in the United States of America, prescribing its functions and providing funds therefor.
National Defense and Security, Foreign Relations, Finance.
House number 4179, an act providing for the restructuring and condonation of unpaid interests, penalties, and surcharges on loans secured by farmers, fisher folk, and agrarian reform beneficiaries from the Department of Agrarian Reform, the Department of Agriculture, the People's Credit and Finance Corporation, the Cooperative Development Authority, the National Food Authority, and the Kedan and Rural Credit Guarantee Corporation.
Agrarian Reform, Agriculture, and Food.
House number 4214, an act providing for the retention and utilization of the income derived by the National Museum, amending for the purpose Section 26 of Republic Act number 8492, otherwise known as the National Museum Act of 1998.
Education, Arts, and Culture.
House Number 4271, an act reducing the retirement age of surface mine workers from 60 to 50 years, amending for the purpose Article 287 of Presidential Decree 442 as amended, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Labor, Employment, and Human Resource Development.
House Number 4275, an act defining the role of the Department of Labor and Employment and the local government units in the establishment and operation of the Public Employment Service Office and the operation of job placement offices by non-government organizations and state universities and colleges, amending for the purpose Sections 3, 6, 7, and 9 of Republic Act Number 8759, otherwise known as the Public Employment Service Office Act of 1999.
Labor, Employment, and Human Resource Development. Local Government and Finance.
House Number 4365, an act allowing home economics graduates to teach home economics subjects and home economics-related technical vocational subjects in all public and private elementary and secondary educational institutions, respectively, consistent with Section 8 of Republic Act Number 10533 or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013.
Education, Arts, and Culture.
House Number 1032, an act increasing the bed capacity of Rizal Medical Center in Pasig City from 300 to 400 beds and appropriating funds therefore.
Health and Demography, Finance.
House Number 1846, an act separating the Romblon National High School, Mayha Extension in Barangay Mayha, Municipality of Budiongan, Province of Romblon, from the Romblon National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Mayha National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4261, an act converting the Bacau Elementary School in Barangay Bacau, Municipality of Mandurriao, Iloilo City into an integrated school to be known as Bacau Integrated School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4262, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Tikwas, Municipality of Dumalinaw, Province of Zamboanga del Sur to be known as Maria Clara Lobregat National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture.
House Number 4263, an act separating the Libertad National High School, Colongulo, annexed in Barangay Colongulo, Municipality of Surala, Province of South Cotabato, from the Libertad National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Colongulo National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4287, an act separating the Alapitan National High School, Little Baguio Annex, in Barangay Little Baguio, Municipality of San Fernando, Province of Bukidnon, from the Halapitan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Little Baguio National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4288, an act separating the Pio Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades, Santa Filomena Annex, in Barangay Santa Filomena, Municipality of Calanasan, Province of Apayao, from the Pio Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades, converting it into an independent national arts and trades high school to be known as Santa Filomena School of Arts and Trades and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4290, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Balukbahan, Municipality of Bayog, Province of Zamboanga del Sur to be known as Balukbahan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture, Finance.
House Number 4291, an act separating the Luna National High School, Tumog Annex, in Barangay Tumog, Municipality of Luna, Province of Apayao, from the Luna National High School, converting it into an independent national agricultural and trade high school to be known as Tumog National Agricultural and Trade High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, Culture, Finance.
House Number 4292, an act establishing the Misamis Occidental Sports Academy in the capital city of Oroquieta, Province of Misamis Occidental and appropriating funds there for other purposes.
Games, Amusement, and Sports, Finance.
House Number 4304, an act converting the Bugang Elementary School in Barangay Bugang, Municipality of Sagay, Province of Camiguin into an integrated school to be known as Bugang Integrated School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, Culture, Finance.
House Number 4307, an act establishing the Siargao Island Sports Academy and Training Center in the Municipality of Dapa, Province of Surigao del Norte and appropriating funds therefore.
Games, Amusement, and Sports, Finance.
House Number 4308, establishing the Davao Sports Academy in the city of Tagum, Province of Davao Norte to be located in the Davao del Norte Sports and Cultural Center and allocating funds therefore.
Games, Amusement, and Sports Finance.
House Number 4321, an act establishing the Navotas District Hospital in the city of Navotas and appropriating funds therefore.
Health and Demography Finance.
House Number 4349, an act declaring certain portions of the Welfareville property located in the city of Mandaluyong open for disposition to bona fide residents without public bidding, repealing for the purpose Republic Act Number 5260.
Urban Planning, Housing, and Resettlement. Ways and Means Finance.
House Number 4363, an act declaring the 2nd District of Sorsogon a mining-free zone and providing penalties for violations thereof.
Environment and Natural Resources.
House Number 4366, an act establishing a National Science and Technology High School in Barangay San Jose, City of Antipolo, Province of Rizal, to be known as Antipolo City National Science and Technology High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture Finance.
House Number 4367, an act separating the General Emilio Aguinaldo National High School Annex in Barangay Pasong Buaya 2, Imus City, Province of Cavite, from the General Emilio Aguinaldo National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as General Licerio Topacio National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture Finance.
House Number 4368, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay Camanga, Municipality of Malangas, Province of Zamboanga, Sibugay, to be known as Dionisio Lopez Senior National High School, appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture Finance.
House Number 766, an act separating the Kalinga National High School, Salegseg, Annex in Barangay Salegseg, Municipality of Balbalan, Province of Kalinga, from the Kalinga National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Balbalan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Education, Arts, and Culture Finance.
House Number 694, an act increasing the burial assistance for veterans from 10,000 pesos to 20,000 pesos, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 6948 as amended, otherwise known as an act standardizing and upgrading the benefits for military veterans and their dependents and appropriating funds therefore.
National Defense and Security Finance.
House Number 362, an act amending Republic Act Number 53 as amended, otherwise known as an act to exempt the publisher, editor, reporter of any publication from revealing the source of public news or information obtained in confidence by including within its coverage journalists from broadcast, news agencies, and internet publications.
Public Information and Mass Media.
Resolution, PS Resolution Number 659, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the killings of Judge Reynerio G. Stasio Jr. Sr. and other judges with the end in view of enacting measures to secure the safety and welfare of the members of the judiciary. Senator Pimentel III.
Justice and Human Rights.
Communications, letters from Attorney Enrique L. Espanyol dated 30 April 2014, submitting to the Senate the 2013 annual reports of the following: Smart Communications Inc. in compliance with RA number 7294, Smart Broadband Inc. in compliance with RA number 8337, Connectivity Unlimited Resource Enterprise Inc. in compliance with RA 9130, and Prime World Digital System Inc. in compliance with Republic Act number 8992.
Public Services.
Letter from Roy Cecil D. Ibay, dated 30 April 2014, submitting to the Senate the 2013 annual report of Digital Mobile Philippines Inc. in compliance with Republic Act number 9180.
Public Services.
Committee reports. Committee report number 30, submitted by the Committee on Public Works on PS Resolution number 436, introduced by Senator Defensor Santiago, entitled Resolution Directing the Proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation to strengthen laws to ensure the efficiency, transparency, and accountability of government disaster relief projects, especially those involving international aid, following reports that bunk houses being developed by the Department of Public Works and Highways in Leyte and Eastern Samar that are meant for the victims of Super Typhoon Yolanda are overpriced and do not comply with internationally recognized standards and best practices. And PS Resolution number 439, introduced by Senator Marcos Jr., entitled Resolution Directing the Senate Committee on Public Works to investigate in aid of legislation the alleged substandard and overpriced bunk houses built for the survivors of Super Typhoon Yolanda in the Visayas region and to institute corrective measures to ensure the safety and security of those displaced by the said catastrophe, recommending the adoption of the recommendations and their immediate implementation sponsors Senators Marcos Jr. and Defensor Santiago.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee Report number 31, submitted jointly by the Committees on Local Government, Finance, Ways and Means, and Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development on Senate number 12, introduced by Senators Marcos Jr. and Cynthia A. Villar, entitled An Act Providing Barangay Officials, including Barangay Tanods, members of the Lupon ng Taga-Pamayapa, Barangay Health Workers, and Barangay Daycare Workers, a retirement benefit, recommending its approval without amendment, taking into consideration Senate numbers 124540, 1007, 1166, 1684, 1853, and 1956. Sponsors, Senators Marcos Jr., Escudero, Sani Angara, Mario Lourdes Nances Binay, Ejercito Estrada, Trillanes IV, Joseph Victoria Ejercito Estrada, Joseph Victoria Ejercito, and Cynthia A. Villar.
Calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, before we recognize Senator Loren Legarda, may I ask that we recognize Senator Estrada for a manifestation or a parliamentary inquiry.
Senator Estrada is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like again to ask the Majority Floor Leader, since the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee is still absent, if he had already talked with the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee regarding the investigation of the Malampaya fund scam.
Mr. President, may I be allowed to respond? Mr. President, I find myself in a different situation that I talk more with Senator Estrada than the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee lately. Since Wednesday, over the weekend, I tried to call him, he tried to call me, we didn't get in touch, but finally, I got to talk to him the other day, and then we were supposed to see each other right before the session, but he gave me a call that he is waiting for the affidavit from the DOJ of Ms. Napoles, and he has some meetings. So I asked him directly the question of Senator Estrada, and although I would prefer that he answer it himself so that I do not misquote him, allow me to try to articulate the essence. Now, first, his assurance that the Blue Ribbon Committee is the Blue Ribbon Committee of the people, and any resolution and any investigation asked for by the members will be scheduled accordingly, and the truth will be found out. Having said that, that general assurance, I asked him about the Malampaya, and he said that he would like to see first the affidavit of Ms. Napoles, because she is supposed to state under oath what she knows about the Malampaya, and after he reads that, he will decide when and which investigation to schedule, because as Senator Estrada knows, some members of the chamber have been also asking that the PDAF scam be reopened, and there are other members who have filed other investigations ahead of Malampaya. So let me just stop there, Mr. President. I'm supposed to talk to him later, and I hope I'll be able to do that, or tomorrow. Or I was hoping that when I do talk to him, he would already have read the Napoles affidavit, so that we would have a definite answer of whether a schedule will be, he will set a date, no, for the opening of this investigation, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, didn't he give you a particular date when to schedule the Malampaya hearing, Mr. President?
No, Mr. President. First, because of that statement that he will be looking at the Napoles, and number two, the chairman of the committee, especially if the investigation has not been opened yet, really has the prerogative, unless overruled by the in accordance with the rules, no, which investigation to open or reopen first, no. So as I said, I don't want to go beyond that to the Honorable Senator Estrada, because I cannot really speak for him, except for what he conveyed to this representation, Mr. President. But I'm sure he is monitoring our conversation now, and this is on the record, and we'll be able to address that maybe tomorrow. If the DOJ is able to submit to the committee the affidavit today?
Mr. President, if my memory serves me right, I remember him giving interviews in the media and stating that he will soon investigate the alleged Malampaya scam, even without the affidavit of Mrs. Napoles regarding the Malampaya scam. When the alleged PDAF scam hearing wrapped up, so he immediately gave interviews to the media and said that he will start investigating the alleged Malampaya scam as soon as possible. Can't he just open the investigation based on the COA audit report, Mr. President?
Well, to answer directly, Mr. President, he can. And if I may also give further context, I filed a resolution, Mr. President, to investigate the Malampaya, especially because it's intimately connected, with the dealings of Ms. Napoles, And we were already going to start the hearing, or the chairman already announced, when Ms. Ruby Tuason suddenly returned, or there was news of her being amendable to speak as a witness, and then Mr. Cunanan came out, and then Attorney Gigi Reyes was in the news of coming home. And then when Secretary De Lima was interviewed, she said that she's not that interested in approaching Ms. Reyes because she's working on something to Ms. Napoles. In other words, Mr. President, the Napolist and all of this came out, and events overtook all of this. But again, the chairman scheduled it for last Thursday, and he already stated his reason for postponing last Thursday. I think officially the reason was that the COA chairperson and or anyone who can speak for COA on this issue wasn't here. So yes, he can start that based on that, but I cannot really elaborate on his reasons, because those were the two reasons he gave me. And personally, I've also filed a resolution on the reopening the fertilizer scam. Ben Har has been saying that he also knows things about this. And there are other scams or alleged scams that other members have filed resolutions. So at this point in time, Senator, Mr. President, I do not really know what the decision of the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee will be.
Yes, Mr. President, I really cannot. I'm really having a difficult time asking you questions with regard to the Blue Ribbon Committee. May I know where is the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee? Why is he not attending sessions? Is he on official business, Mr. President?
Let me check with the secretary if he's on official business. I cannot answer
He's been
the
absent
question
for such a long time,
why
but,
he is not attending sessions with an S. But as per our phone call a while ago, those are the two things. That one, there are certain urgent matters, including the affidavit that he's waiting for, and two, meetings. But may I ask the secretary if he is officially on mission or...
There is a letter addressed to the chair, to the Senate President, dated May 26, 2014, which we received this afternoon, stating that Senator Teofisto Gingono will be on official business today, May 26, 2014. He will be in an important meeting with constituents within Metro Manila. Thus, he will not be able to attend the Senate regular session. It was signed by the Chief of Staff, Attorney Dante Atienza. That is the official communication this
Well,
afternoon.
Mr. President,
Official meeting with constituents in Metro Manila?
That's correct.
Is that my understanding?
That's what is stated in the letter, Senator Estrada.
well,
we
Mr.
also have,
President, if I may propose, if you want him to be present all the time, I can be chairman of Blue Ribbon, make him majority leader. So he'll be forced to attend each session like I am forced to do, Mr. President.
And I hope you don't prejudge the issue, Mr. President.
No,
the case, Mr. President.
Mr. Estrada is more than welcome to ask these questions and to raise his concerns.
Well, anyway, Mr. President, are you in favor of? I'm asking the majority floor leader, Mr. President, are you in favor of for the resumption of the investigation of the alleged PDAF scam, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, I put that on record, and not to elaborate too much, because Ms. Napoles has been making statement, and some have been taking this as gospel truth, or the media has no choice but to report this, and suddenly she has become the accuser rather than the accused. And the only way that we can find out the truth is if we have a face-to-face with her, no? That is why I'm in favor of not only the reopening, but allowing me to ask her questions, and I will waive my right as a senator to simply ask questions. I'll allow her to also ask me questions. But again, it's not my decision personally. It's a decision of the Blue Ribbon Committee as a body, no, or as a group of people who makes a collective decision, Mr. President.
If I may humbly suggest, Mr. President, if ever that the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee decides to reopen the investigation of the alleged PDAF scam, I humbly suggest that we that the committee invite Ben Herloy, and of course the files of Ben Herloy and the files submitted to the Philippine Daily Inquirer by Ben Herloy himself. Because based on the information that I gathered from day one, I think the former lawyer of Ben-Hur and Ben-Hur himself submitted their digital files to the Philippine Daily Inquirer and printed it out. But unfortunately, Mr. President, only 3 senators who were implicated in the scam, namely this representation, Senators Revilla and Rile, were tagged as those involved in the PDAF scam. Ngunit, however, marami palang mga legislators. There were a lot of legislators, hundreds of legislators, not only senators but congressmen, were also listed in the files of Ben Herloy, which was submitted to the Philippine Daily Inquirer. I think it is unfair for the 3 legislators allegedly involved in the PDAF scam, that they published or they published our photos for barely a year already, Mr. President.
Just for the record, the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee recommended a subpoena duces tecum to summon or to bring to the Senate the files of Ben Herloy. However, Mr. Lui responded that the file is no longer with him, and therefore another subpoena duces tecum was issued to the NBI for the production of
May I know
files.
where is the files of Mr. Ben Herloy, Mr. President?
He said he turned it over to the NBI.
Not to the Philippine Daily Inquirer? How come
That was not mentioned, but we cannot, since the records were officially turned over to the NBI, the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee recommended that the subpoena duces tecum be issued to the NBI, which is an official government agency having custody of the files.
Mr. President, just to further clarify, no? Remember when we talk about the hard disk, no? It is a physical device that houses digital files, but digital files can easily be reproduced. So we don't know at this point in time whether the original files in that hard disk were given to the Inquirer, Philippine Daily Inquirer, or whether it was copied. That's why when Secretary De Lima said that she's still consulting with the Ombudsman whether or not it should be turned over to us, as the Blue Ribbon Committee, because some people were mentioned, I stated that the files can be copied as long as it's authenticated that it is a authentic copy of those files. So let me assure the good senator that his suggestions that all of the documents, all of the evidence be turned over to the Blue Ribbon Committee to make sure that justice is done, no, and that no stone is left unturned, is being done.
Sa akin lang, Ginoong Pangulo, nabalitaan po sa base sa mga nakalap kong impormasyon, ay nakapagbigay po ang pangunahing testigo ng PDAF scam ng kanyang mga files dun sa una-una sa NBI, pangalawa rin sa Philippine Daily Inquirer. Ngunit nung ang lumabas dun sa mga pahayagan ay 3 senador lang po ang nasasangkot. Ngunit dun sa mga files na isinabmit dun sa Philippine Daily Inquirer, marami palang mga legislators ang sinasabi nilang kasangkot dun sa PDAF scam. Bakit tatatlo lang ho kaming senador ang napapublish dun sa dyaryo? Mukha yatang unfair sa amin tatlo. But, Mr. President, sabi ho ni Senator Enrile, hindi raw sila gwapo, kaya hindi sila pinapublish. But anyway, Mr. President, we cannot just allow a newspaper publishing photos left and right or pictures and their names without any solid pieces of evidence, Mr. President. Parang kayo, you were those allegedly included in the list keeps on denying that they do not know Ms. Napoles and they did not have any transactions with Ms. Napoles. We cannot just allow them to publish photos of legislators in the newspapers, because we legislators, we also have an honor to protect, Mr. President. We have a name to protect, Mr. President. I pity those legislators who are not really involved in this PDAF or Malampaya scam, Mr. President. Yun lang naman po yung sa akin, Ginoong Pangulo.
Well, Mr. President, let me just state that there's a process, no? So, for example, the COA report names certain legislators, but the COA report itself, and as explained by the chairperson, distinguished between COA report that also has whistleblowers and additional evidence that there was anomalies in that versus legislators with the dealings of these NGOs that are fully liquidated and everything. And in fact, the papers of the last 2 weeks have published certain names even without accompanying documents and everything, but they were not saying it's true. They're simply saying that this is what Ben-Har submitted to them. So definitely, we're in a very confusing state where chismis is sometimes substituted as truth, where the accused now becomes the accuser, etc. And for me, the only solution at this point in time is to have a hearing kung saan nagkakaharap-harap at malaman ng tao sino sasabi ng totoo. But number 2, for COA and the DBM to come out with all the documents. Because all of these have a paper trail, and until now, they have not released these documents, no? And even for the DOJ, for example, no, they have been fast also in accusing people, but I heard that for example, yung kay Ben-Har, if they had it for 10 months, why can't they tell the people now kung sino yung dapat nilang i-clear din? No, it's not only saying na ito dapat kasuhan, dapat mag-clear din sila kung walang ebidensya or walang katotohanan sa iba. So I sympathize with everyone mentioned, but there's a process of verification and there's process of accumulation of evidence here, Mr. President. But the whole country is really being rocked by the scandal, and we're all searching for a process, a mechanism to get to know the whole truth. As the good senator stated in the interpellation for the Sandigan Bayan Reform Bill, you were simply asking for fairness because you're hoping that in that process you'll be able to fully defend yourself and be able to that the truth will come out one way or the other.
But Mr. President, you mentioned the COA report. Remember, Mr. President, the COA report zeroed in on the Napoles NGOs. Only the 8 connected NGOs with Napoles. The rest, yung 74 or 70 plus NGOs, they did not concentrate. The COA report did not make any mention who were the legislators involved in this remaining 74 NGOs. The COA report did not mention. They zeroed in on the Napoles NGOs because there was a whistleblower. Eh paano naman yung 74 na NGOs hindi binigyan ng kaukulang pansin?
Mr. President, my recollection was there were some other names, and
But this was not highlighted.
yes, but to your point, dear Senator, no, this is only 2007 to 2009, and this is only PDAF.
Yeah.
And I have stated that if PDAF is 1% of the budget and ganito kalaki yung skandalo, you can imagine that the 98-99% may nakawan din dyan. Pero nasan ang COA report? Even Ben Harloy said na until 2012, he was still dealing with the Department of Agriculture. So I was also asking COA, nasan yung report for 2012? So to your point, the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee stated that after the Napoles NGOs, he will investigate the other NGOs. I heard Senator Escudero asking for the same, and I guess we're all waiting for that, Mr. President.
He should have done it simultaneously together with the NGOs connected with Mrs. Napoles.
Well, I'm not really fond of commenting hindsight, dear Senator,
I know,
but
I understand
I
the
agree with
situation,
you.
Mr.
I agree with you, Mr. Senator, that Mr. President, that all of this should be investigated with the same
Correct.
zeal of the previous investigations.
Hindi. What happened is that the Blue Ribbon Committee was only investigating the NGOs connected with Mrs. Napoles and zeroing in on the 3 senators, Mr. President. I think that is quite unfair. There are several NGOs which are not identified with Napoles. Bakit hindi nyo inimbestigahan yung mga NGOs that are not connected with Mrs. Napoles? Baka doon may makita kayong mga legislators na katulad din na or authenticated yung files ni Mr. Ben Herloy.
Anyway, Mr. President, this isn't a privileged speech, so I will not move that it be referred to the Blue Ribbon Committee, but it is on the record, and I'm sure that the Blue Ribbon Committee professional staff, it has its own office, and the staff of Senator Gingora is monitoring and will take into consideration of this. And to the last point of the good senator from San Juan, as to the subpoena, I think there's already a subpoena, Mr. President, am I correct, for the NBI to produce the files?
No, NBI and also sana rin sa Philippine Daily Inquirer so we can compare kung pareho.
Will we submit that matter to the committee chair on the Blue Ribbon?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, the Deputy Minority Leader wishes to be recognized.
Senator Soto is recognized.
Mr. President, on the other hand, contrary to... I'm sorry, thank you very much. Thank you, the Majority Leader. On the other hand, else, while they were discussing on the floor, debating on the floor, Mr. President, and I think the Committee on Science and Technology should look into this matter. Because I understand that the newspaper accounts, I have been browsing through it. I actually don't answer anything. Think it deserves my attention. I was not a senator from 2004 to 2010. So anyway, they were talking about a hard drive of Ben Harloy, the hard drive of Napoles, and a lawyer says there is a hard drive owned by so-and-so. And there's a lawyer who says it is not authorized. The Committee on Science and Technology of the Senate, over and beyond
Appropriate action.
Sorry for that.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that
On the privilege hour, Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized.
Mr. President, I have the honor to report to this chamber key issues discussed during the 23rd World Economic Forum in East Asia, particularly the session on designing solutions for climate and resource risks, where I was a panelist and discussion leader. I am reporting this to the chamber since only 3 senators, to my understanding, attended the World Economic Forum, and that's the Senate President, Senator Bam Aquino, and this representation. And I feel that through this brief summary, I can have all of these in the Senate's records. The Philippine hosting of WEF gave us the opportunity to tell the region and the world that we are back in business, and that despite the calamities in the global financial crisis, no less than President Aquino during the opening plenary said that the impacts of climate change must be considered in all our development plans and that we are gradually moving towards a direction that includes resilience in the face of disaster. Resilience should be integral to both corporate governance. We can ensure our economic resilience by reducing disaster risks, letting investors be aware of it, and requiring business investments to take into account disaster risk reduction and management measures. As legislators, we are urged to address gaps in policies through measures that will link science and policy making, finance mechanisms for climate and energy solutions, including energy efficiency, clean technology, and green infrastructure investment, and enable the private business and financial community to support comprehensive climate and energy policies and to invest in climate and clean energy solutions. These messages were echoed by the co-chairs of the 23rd World Economic Forum during the closing plenary. Co-chair Takeshi Niinami, CEO of Lawson in Japan, stressed that resilience is important and technology must be used to combat disaster risks. Co-chair Atsutoshi Nishida, chairman of the board of Toshiba Corporation in Japan, said that we must aim for a resilient East Asia because the impact of natural hazards can affect sustainability. We should train our sites on a climate-resilient future, prepare for disasters, protect the environment, and use clean technologies. Meanwhile, co-chair James T. Riady, CEO of Lipo Group in Indonesia, stressed the importance of inclusive growth and highlighted the need to address unemployment among youth and gaps in the agriculture sector. Mr. President, in climate risks, there could sometimes be no second chances. Because of climate change, poverty alleviation and achieving food security will become increasingly difficult. New poverty traps will arise as existing obstacles remain and economic growth will slow down. The United Nations said economic losses from disasters are, and I quote, out of control. We should in fact reverse this situation. We need to be in control, and resilience should be at the core of our development policies and strategies. That is my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lauren Legarda. Majority Leader.
Again, Mr. President, we thank the very hardworking, resilient Senator Lauren Legarda, who every week reminds us of our duties to nature and the environment. Mr. President, I move that we refer the said speech to the Committee on Climate Change.
So referred.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2212 under Committee Report number 26. This is the Youth Entrepreneurship Bill, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Resumption of consideration of Senate Bill number 2212 under Committee Report 26 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Bam Aquino.
Sponsor of the measure, Senator Aquino, is recognized. What is the status of the measure, Mr. Majority Leader?
Mr. President, we're in the period of interpellation. And if no other senator, Mr. President, will ask questions, may I ask for 5 minutes to make some clarificatory questions, Mr. President, with the permission of the author and sponsor of the bill.
Of course, Mr. President.
Mr.
Please
President,
proceed.
may I have a minute suspension? Just
1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, and to our dear colleague and the Benjamin of this House, may I ask you to summarize or to give us, in a nutshell, what the Youth Entrepreneurship Act of 2014 is?
Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Actually, there are three main features of this act. The first is setting youth entrepreneurship as a national strategy to address our youth unemployment and encourage participation of the youth in activities which will help their families and themselves. Right now, Mr. President, 72% of all those who are unemployed are actually under the age of 30. So we're looking at a very large base of our youth who are unemployed and who are desperately looking for opportunities to raise income and to be productive. So primarily, Mr. President, this bill puts youth entrepreneurship as one of our national strategies. Secondly, is that this includes financial literacy and entrepreneurial skills in our educational system. I'd like to mention, Mr. President, that when the bills of our colleagues came to the committee, there were different modalities being suggested. No? Some mentioned at the high school level, some mentioned at the college level, or even at the tertiary or alternative education level. And one study actually showed that the best time to teach financial literacy is at the grade school, or when you're actually less than 10 years old. So we actually put this all together, Mr. President, into the strategy of the bill, which directs DepEd, CHED, and TESDA to introduce financial literacy and eventually entrepreneurialism into their courses. No? So we're hoping, Mr. President, that we can create some change in terms of the way that we're able to support our entrepreneurs, starting with financial literacy at a very young age. This is savings, the value of money, the cost of work, the value of work, and eventually lead that towards an entrepreneurial mindset down the line. Third, Mr. President, is that we actually create an enabling financial environment for young people to get into entrepreneurship, because what we found is that a fund that environment for loans and for other ways to support our young people to become entrepreneurs.
Concerned author and the committee is trying to address, Mr. President, a present mindset that the Filipino has. No? For example, madalas ko kasi marinig, no, even when I was in college, that ang Chinese halimbawa, no, and maybe even the Koreans now, no, sila pag graduate ang tanong, asan ang negosyo? Tayo ang tanong, saan ang trabaho? So para bang ang option lang ng Pilipino ay maging empleyado when there are so much opportunities for business, for investment, for entrepreneurship. So is this bill trying to precisely, not only provide for entrepreneurship, but really change the mindset of the Filipino that even as they go through elementary to high school, they know that they have options.
Definitely, Mr. President. And I'd like to take this bill in context with the other bill that was thankfully passed by our colleagues already last February, the Go Negosyo Bill. That bill creates the infrastructure to support MSMEs. No? This particular bill can be seen in light of that bill, and this one focuses on a specific sector that's currently the largest sector that's unemployed, and that's the youth. And again, Mr. President, what a troubling number. 72% of the unemployed are youth. So even if we graduate, Mr. President, from some of the best colleges in the Philippines, we're not really assured of finding the right job. No? Added to that, Mr. President, our underemployment rate is about 20%, which is another big number that we need to contend with. So hopefully, Mr. President, as we're trying to bring in investors, and Senator Legarda mentioned the World Economic Forum, I'm sure that will bring in investors here, hopefully create more jobs. We also create the parallel path, which is to help our young people put up their own business, get into negosyo, and see it as a viable path for them to take, Mr. President. After all, not everyone, and this is a sad reality, Mr. President, not everyone can get a job because there aren't enough. So in short, Mr. President, apart from trying to increase the number of available jobs, there has to be a viable option for everyone else. And we're saying, Mr. President, rather than become jobless or just wait for a job that you may or may not get, or eventually even enter a job which you're not really trained for and hence underemployment, you can, if given the right support and enabling environment, get into entrepreneurship and hopefully chart your course through that path, Mr. President.
Yes. And if I'm correct, Mr. President, the Asian integration and not only the 2015 plan but the 2020 plan would really allow more opportunities for the different Asian countries to engage in entrepreneurship and business. So we will be in the losing end, or to put it, Mr. President, na lugi tayo kung yung mga neighbors natin ang mindset na anong mga negosyo na pwede dito, anong mga negosyo na pwede itayo sa Pilipinas, sa Vietnam, sa Cambodia, sa China. Tapos tayo, ang tanong naman natin, saan tayo pwede maghanap ng trabaho?
Maghahanap tayo ng trabaho sa mga kumpanya nila, Mr. President, kung ganyan tayo mag-isip, no? But just on that point, it's really a mindset shift, Mr. President, which you had mentioned earlier. because many of our businesses, actually, as we've been going around the Philippines, really are afraid of the ASEAN integration. But we seem to forget that we also have good products. We have great services. We have the best macroeconomic growth currently. So in the same way, Mr. President, that we're worried about these other countries, I'm sure they're equally worried about our country in terms of entering their trade space. No? But with that, Mr. President, you're right. The mindset should be these are opportunities which we can our current market, which I personally feel is not maximized by our SMEs, but also go towards other markets, Mr. President. And the ASEAN seems to be the next logical choice as they're our neighbors, and we have committed to have an integrated market by 2015.
I'm very happy, Mr. President, that the sponsor used the term environment, because sometimes we think of things in isolation. No? For example, when we say peace and order, sabihin, kulang ang sweldo ng police, or kulang sa barel, or kulang sa CCTV. But for example, the Singaporeans, no, when you ask them peace and order, they will tell you it's setting the environment, no? Or it's a relationship among different factors. No? And I was really surprised, no? just to put on the record, that when I was reading about countries with a lot of micro and small enterprises, no? For example, Korea. No? When we say Korea, I think of the big companies, including Samsung, and especially because we're used to quality products from Japan, and Japan has a long tradition and history of mega or large companies, no, where people go to work after college and they retire in that company. No? But nagulat po ako, Mr. President, na sa Korea pala, more than 95% of their employees are employees of micro, small, and medium enterprises. No? So even Rising Tiger or yung mga economies ngayon po na kinainggitan, no, ng iba't mga bansa, hindi to mga bansa na panay panay mga malalaking kumpanya, no, kung hindi it's the interaction really of different sizes, no, of enterprises. And lastly, let me put in the record, with the permission also of Senator Cynthia Villar, no, our resident entrepreneur and success story. She often reminds us when we talk about funding and entrepreneurship that minsan inisip ng Pilipino, it's all about funding. No? And sinasabi niya, I hope I'm saying it right, Senator Villar, na hindi lang yung pera. It's the knowledge, the wisdom, and experience in running a business. So I'm happy that this bill is not only a bill that deals with funding, no, but rather it deals with growing up, having a mindset, having the environment, and having the learning tools to be able, no, to survive or to have a what you call this, a successful business. No? In fact, a lot of successful businessmen, first few ventures are failures. No? But I guess they were brought up with the mindset that you keep trying until you succeed, or business is a learning process. No?
Definitely, Mr. President, and I won't echo anymore those great points that you had mentioned. Definitely, I agree with all of that. And again, Mr. President, I'd like to look at this bill vis-a-vis the other bills I've passed, and of course the Go Negosyo bill. They sort of all fit together, Mr. President, to create that enabling environment. And on you had mentioned Senator Villar, of course, is one of my main partners in entrepreneurship. We're both Go Negosyo champions, Mr. President. She has also indicated that she would like to be a co-sponsor of this bill, and I welcome that very much.
She can also co-sponsor the funding, Mr. President. She will be in a good position to do that, especially as the economy grows.
She's free to put that in the amendments, Mr. President, if she wishes to. But currently, her wish to be part of the bill by being a co-sponsor is definitely most welcome.
Mr. President, can I bring up a question on the how? No? Because, when we talk about postgraduate studies, for example, law school or a med school, no, it's easy to ensure competence because a lot of the great lawyers, judges, justices, a lot of practicing our best surgeons, our best, all kinds of doctors also love to teach. No, so in that sense, we're making sure that those who practice, we're making sure that it's not only theory, but those that are teaching are also great at this, no? But the concern is if we're going to start teaching this in elementary and high school, no? How will it fit into the present K-12 setup? And number two, how can we make sure that the teachers are competent, especially since most, I will not say all, because there may be some teacher entrepreneurs or their family are also running businesses. Of course, there are teachers who may sideline na nagbebenta. I mean, I think at one level or the other, each Filipino passes through entrepreneurship by buying and selling something. No? But how do we ensure that hindi lang theory to, o hindi lang sasabihin sa classroom, but there'll be competent teachers and there'll really be a framework and a curriculum that will really lead to graduates who are possess the knowledge and ability to enter into different forms of businesses once they graduate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me answer that on a few levels. No, maybe on the most basic level, there are provisions in the law or in the bill that capacitates DepEd, CHED, and TESDA to do further training with their teachers. And definitely, Mr. President, that's important. Although I will have to say that I think a lot of teachers are also entrepreneurs, no? So we might not have to look that far. But also, Mr. President, as you get older or as you get into the more advanced courses, there's really a need for specialization, Mr. President. And with K-12, for example, there really will be a move to get teachers to specialize because the tracks, Mr. President, are quite specific. So there's a arts track, for example. There's a a skills building track, which is closer to a tech voc type. And those types of courses, Mr. President, at the K-11, K-12, will really need teachers who are trained in these specific courses. And with this bill, Mr. President, the entrepreneurship track does come to the forefront. So I would think that the preparation for the other courses would be the same for the preparation for the enterprise track. And then, Mr. President, at the grade school level, probably there's not a need to have too much specialization because this is basic financial literacy. And I'd just like to underscore this fact, Mr. President, that in a study made by Citibank a few years ago, we ranked really low in terms of financial literacy. So there's really a need to teach this, no? But at the grade school level, it's as simple as savings, as valuing the value or appreciating the value of money. And probably, Mr. President, this can be seen as a life skill. In the same way that honesty and being a good neighbor is taught to really young children, pwede rin isama doon, Mr. President, no, these type of life skills which are the building blocks of financial literacy. And we've seen, Mr. President, that if you're able to teach financial literacy to children, at some point, they will inevitably go into entrepreneurialism or they'll want to actually utilize that money better because may savings na sila. So probably, Mr. President, at each stage, there will be a training program for DepEd, and the needs also will differ. Meaning, at the latter stages, meaning
rephrase, no? Instead of simply, inviting businessmen to soft drink factories, to go to call centers, to be able to see for themselves and encourage entrepreneurship, no? Maybe the bill can also offer some sort of partnership. I don't know if incentives should be favored or not. And maybe the LGU is also one partner. Wherein the learning outside of the classroom becomes also a standard. Or in big private schools, they have also alternative classroom or learning experiences, for example, that they invite. Because in private schools, usually, anak ng mga businessmen. So it's so easy to invite their fathers, who's vice president of this or manager of that or CEO of this, to come and speak to the students. So the students come home saying, I want to be like him one day, or ganun pala ang trabaho. For example, no, in the US, the guidance counselor plays such an active role in guiding the students of possible careers. No, if you watch the US shows, when you're called into the guidance counselor, pati yung brochures kung ano yung colleges na pwede, ano yung specialization, etc. But sa atin parang pagka magulo ka o disturb, either doon ka sa guidance counselor o sa discipline officer, no? Hindi parang Hindi siya parang isang programang nakatahinang mabuti para yung mga bata lumalaki talaga yung options, no? So I just like to put that forward. I know there's a lot of innovations in these bills, but I think one thing that could get really students interested and learning is if there's already an interaction, no, with businesses in their community, rather than just the theoretical, even if magaling yung mga teachers. No?
That's a great idea, Mr. President. I'm sure that can be tackled in the IRR, but if you would want to put that as an amendment, we would welcome that, Mr. President.
Well, let's take the Brigada Eskwela, no? I surprisingly, but very much welcome, more and more CEOs and presidents and high-level officials of the companies that adopted schools go to the schools for 1 week, no, to they themselves help clean the schools, etc. No, and if they're willing to do that, I would suppose that inviting them for a day or half a day or a few hours to give a presentation about the school to answer questions will be welcome to them. You know, my question is that the reason I bring this up is because I don't think we should just leave that to the creativeness or of the principal or to the connections of the mayor in that group, in that area, but rather there should be some institutional mechanism wherein the business leaders of the community really interact with the schools at that level. In the end, they will benefit. For example, Mr. President, one of the drivers right now is the call centers. No? And if you ask all of the call centers, they'll tell you a simple problem which, if can be solved, will help their business. No? Sabi nila, out of 100 that applies, 6 hanggang 12. So by simply teaching the students learning, and these are basically communication skills and language, by improving that, can you imagine if one city or one school district can increase to 20 or 25 or 30% yung natatanggap over 100, no? That will not only help the businesses, but it will help the industry. I think we will grow in a much bigger pace, no? If in fact we had the employees. So I think the business sector will be open, but they will also be looking for a mechanism. The Brigada Eskwela allowed them a mechanism of helping that hindi na kailangan na silang ng coordination. But as you said, no, possibly at the period of amendment or possibly sa IRR also, because I guess it will be better if it is in fact the DepEd and the businessmen or maybe the business clubs and chambers who talk and allow them as just a framework, then allow them to have different styles or different mechanisms in each school district. No?
Definitely, Mr. President. And in fact, I think with the K-12 reform, it really does become incumbent upon the school to talk to the business sector, because the whole idea of K-12 is that at 11 and 12, you're already learning a skill which can get you employed locally right away. So probably, Mr. President, not only for this particular bill, but even in course of pursuing the K-12 reform, there is really a need to convene that the DepEd and the local businesses to talk about what courses can be offered or provided to the particular local school.
Even summer apprenticeship programs, Mr. President. No, of course, they are high school students and not college students, so they will not have the apprenticeship programs like the college students. But exposure for 2 weeks or for 1 month, seeing how businessmen work. How to know that it's a complicated process. The agriculture department demands funds for them, the health department. So let me leave it up to the chairman to think. I do agree that a broad approach or maybe an accompanying bill with a with said funding, no. So let me just state at this point in time that personally I'm very supportive of this bill, but I'm also thinking whether I should propose. Because if it's too meager a funding, parang insulto din sa
sector.
Di ba, paano natin sasabihin, encourage mo yung mga bata, kung tayo mismo ilalagay natin 100 million. Pag sa buong bansa, paghatian mo ang 100 million, 'di ba? Halos wala yan. You know, I attended the anniversary of Pure Gold, and I saw their video presentation. Of course, the sari-sari stores are their clients, no? But they went beyond lending and giving them points. They pick some outstanding retailers, and they go there and redo. You know, they construct, no, yung mga tindahan mismo nung customers nila. And not only could you see the excitement, but the encouragement and word of mouth, grabe. No, so kahit wala silang commercials or ads, grabe po yung sa community na paano lumaki yung tindahan mo. Well, I did well, but may institution na tumulong. And, you know, if the private sector can do it, I think there's a way that the government can do it. I do agree with you. If we go around saying 50,000 sa'yo, 100,000 sa'yo, baka mawaldas yung pera. But if it's successful entrepreneurs and umuutang naman talaga sa 5-6 at nagbabayad, or kita mo successful yung negosyo pero kailangan lumaki, no? I think there's a way that we can put funding. No? I know the DSWD is doing this at certain levels. Yeah. And in the last budget, with the help of Senator Escudero and the Senate President, may proposal for 500 million per region, nalagyan ng 100 million for microfinance. No? So I'm thankful for that. And I'm hoping that the agency that will now be administering that will show good results by the budget hearing. So we'll be able to convince our colleagues that we can put more, no? And let me leave it at that, Mr. President. But I was told that Senator Pia, who will be sponsoring the picture-based warning system, will be down in a few minutes. So just allow me one more question while waiting for her. Elaborating while waiting for Senator Pia. May I yield to Senator?
My bill. So I just want to clarify with Mr. President, starting it in secondary school.
Yes. Mr. President, we can actually share with you the Citibank study that was presented a few years ago, which showed that one of the best times to actually teach financial literacy and entrepreneurship is actually at the grade school or elementary. What we did was we divided financial literacy at the grade school level and then use it as a bridge towards entrepreneurialism at the secondary and tertiary levels. So we can get you a copy of that, Mr. President. But what we did actually was we put together the different ideas, no, because some had financial literacy at the primary level. Of course, yours was entrepreneurship at the secondary and tertiary level. So we thought that by putting it together, there would be no harm and actually strengthen even the goal to get financial literacy and entrepreneurialism into our schools.
I just want to clarify, how do you do that in elementary school? Like, what will you teach in elementary
yes,
school?
actually, Mrs. President, no, we do have a working model. One of the youth groups that we awarded last year, no, the Tagum Youth Cooperative, put up a savings program in public elementary schools in Tagum, and they were successful in teaching the young children how to save. No? So again, it's primarily financial literacy, not yet entrepreneurship.
So we have to clarify that it is not a course.
It's
is
not. It's
teaching
a life
the
skill.
values.
Yes, yes.
So I guess we have to clarify that,
Okay.
because in the bill it says there in elementary school, and it's very big. And I thought that it will not be cost efficient to teach it in elementary school because they're not that serious yet about these things. I remember in our community we have lakbay aral every day, hundreds of them, and then I don't accept elementary school students to go to my livelihood programs because I thought that they're too young to understand, and parang alam mo naman, mag-field trip, nag-enjoy lang pero hindi talaga seryoso. So ang tinatanggap ko lang ay starting high school,
Yes,
kasi sila yung mas makakaintindi nung itinuturo mo doon sa iyong mga livelihood projects, yung mga sample ng livelihood projects.
Mr. President, we can definitely clarify that. We
Yes.
welcome the amendment. But
Because I would think that in elementary school, you you teach the right values.
Exactly.
But the teaching of entrepreneurship, it's more difficult. So I would recommend that in high school, but in elementary school, you can develop the values that will make them good entrepreneurs
Exactly,
when they
Mr. President.
grow old.
In fact, there was really no intention to make it a course. It was really meant to be included in the values formation courses in elementary, specifically financial literacy, so meaning the value of savings, the value of hard work, and through that program, build the foundation for entrepreneurship in secondary and tertiary.
So we can clarify
Definitely,
that the
Mr.
values
President.
will be taught in elementary school that will support them to become entrepreneurs in the future.
We shall do that, Mr.
But
President.
the technical course should be started in high school. Yes. Okay. And I just want to clarify the grant. I'm a little confused on how you give grants to, because you will limit it sa mga bata, the youth. So there are now many grants and loans from existing programs of the government, but you are intending to give grants to the youth. So how do you define it? I mean, may nakikita ako noon na pag may entrepreneurship class sila, pinagagawa sila ng project, parang practice. Yung ba bibigyan mo ng grant o you give grant to individuals? Kasi kung high school, hindi naman sila mag-entrepreneur after high school. Magka-college muna yon, di ba? Bihira lang, those who will drop out of college and will just finish high school, they will become entrepreneur. But that is not familiar. I mean, it's not a practice. So, for example, yung entrepreneurship sa high school, what kind of grants would you give them? Are they grants just to make projects while learning entrepreneurship?
Mr. President, the idea was that smaller amounts which can get somebody started, maybe similar to the project that you mentioned, if there's funding, can come from like a project grant. But of course, when it's time to scale that up to a regular business, that's when they'll need a loan, no?
Yeah.
So we wanted to put both of those facilities in the law so that we won't be constrained down the line.
Yeah. But you have to clarify.
We shall
when
clarify
they're in
that.
high school and doing entrepreneurship, budget so that they can have because 90% of all the businesses in the Philippines are my enterprises. And for the information of everybody, almost 50% of them are in food. So, kung mamimili kayo ng negosyo, talagang it's micro, small, and medium enterprises and in food. Napakarami in food. Yun lang po. Marami pong salamat. Thank you, Mr.
very
President.
much.
Thank you, thank you, Senator Villar. If I may add, Mr. President, the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector provides 66% of all jobs. So aside from being a significant part of our economy, they are also a significant employer. And we're hoping that we can actually usher in a better path to progress, reach the inclusive growth that we're all aiming for. And lastly, Mr. President, if I may just go back to one of your points, no, on loans. Another bill that we're trying to push is actually the microfinance bill, which will support our microfinance sector, provide an alternative to 5-6, which is more organized, less smaller interest rates, and with the development of the Filipino also in mind. So we hope, Mr. President, as the months go on, we can definitely push for these suite of laws which can really support our countrymen. Thank you very
So
much.
just while waiting for Senator Piano, just to clarify the question of Senator Villar to you, my understanding is that unlike other bills that says let's teach this as a subject, teach that as a subject, you're saying that entrepreneurship precisely cannot be taught, just as a subject. I mean, they have it in college, but you don't really graduate as an entrepreneur. Most successful entrepreneurs live it, So you'd like that from elementary to high school, yung sagot mo, Mr. President, sagot ng ating honorable sponsor is that yung values, no? But as to the technical parts, there will be some scattered technical parts also, no? For example, sa math, no? There'll be an effort for the teachers, for example, to be subliminally teaching accounting for small business, just rather than teaching math the traditional way. Or for example, current events, no? Usually, ang fini-feature sa current events, yung mga politiko, di ba, yung mga nasa news. Pero in this case, teachers can start looking at featuring like for example, the ABS CBN.com, no? There's a section there na how did a palengke vendor become the biggest supplier of embutido in the ganyan? How does a ganito, no? Something like that, no? So my understanding is that I understand the concern of Senator Villar. I mean, diba, hindi mo naman titignan na may klase kang entrepreneurship sa elementary school, baka tingin pa ng ibang bansa parang over naman yon. Paano naman maintindihan ng grade 2 yung entrepreneurship? But in a sense that we're telling DepEd, you have to look at the whole curriculum and hindi pwedeng ang framework. For example, ang example, sa ngayon, pagka elementary ganyan, parating example, empleyado eh. Boss or empleyado. Minsan lang magkaroon ng example ng negosyante at things like that. Am I correct in my... No?
You're correct, Mr. President. But again, no, I think we can also leave it to DepEd to a certain extent, no, and they are experts in terms of putting together curricula, examples, no, to be able to put that in. No. But Senator Villar was correct in saying that there was no intention to add another subject that is entrepreneurship in grade school. The way I see it, the best way to fit it in, no, is at the life skills, no, because there is a subject that talks about life skills. And it is one life skill that we're not talking enough about or teaching our children about. Because, Mr. President, no, nakakakaba, in that there's another study that shows in the region, resilient, as Senator Legarda had said earlier, no, to be resilient during times of crisis. So hopefully we can start these types of skills and these types of mindset at a very young age. As you grow older, Mr. President, you can actually take entrepreneurship as a course. No, in fact, colleges do provide entrepreneurship as a course. But by including this in our high school, we're actually saying that handling money is an important part of your life, no? So we're hoping that in K-12 there will be an entrepreneurship track, and that can be supported with some level of funding, so that hindi naman puro theoretical yung mga students natin, Mr. President.
I agree with you in concept, Mr. President, in principle, but I'm uncomfortable of leaving it to DepEd. That's why some kind of partnership or institutional mechanism in advice. Let me give you an example, Mr. President. I found this very interesting when I was reading about it. No? When Singapore started, the Singaporean Chinese did not want to join the armed forces or the police because ang turo sa kanila, that's a profession to look down on. No? And ang problema naman nila, kung hindi dadami ang police at militar na Chinese, pagka may mga racial riots, and at that time may problema pa sila sa Malaysia, karamihan ng officers at karamihan nung men was of the Malay race, no? So alam mo kung kanino inassign ang 10-year program to change the mindset when it comes to law enforcement and armed forces as a noble profession? Sa DepEd. Hindi inassign sa Department of National Defense or sa to others, but they precisely gave it the DepEd. I don't know exactly how they did it, but I'm quite sure, as Senator Villar, be a policeman course, etc. But I guess in the whole education, they showed na kailangan mo ng law enforcers.
Mr. President, I think they mandated that everyone undergoes.
Iba pa yun, Mr. President.
Iba pa yun.
No? But even if you mandate, di ba, alam mo, sa atin, at some point in time before we amended the law, but gumagraduate pa naman sila na kalahati. I mean, yung mga nag-officers gustong-gusto at nagmimilitar, yung kalahati sabi waste of time, yung iba minumura pa yung, di ba, yung hindi na imbibe yung why we have that, no? Having said that, Mr. President, I think track with this bill, and definitely there'll be some trial and error, and there'll be some consultation between the Department of Education and even the CHED, no? Even those who are already experts in entrepreneurship in education in the college level will probably be coordinating with the DepEd, no? So thank you for your time, dear sponsor and Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Majority Floor Leader Senator Villar, for your comments and suggestions, and of course we'll be very open and we'd welcome any of these suggestions or amendments in the bill. Thank you very much.
Are there other senators who indicated
Mr.
the
President,
desire to avail of the period of interpellation?
Senator Osmeña, Mr. President.
Senator Osmeña.
Majority.
Mr. President, I move that we resume 7, take into consideration Senate Bill number 499 under Committee Report number 19, Health Warning Bill, Mr. President.
On consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary, last week we closed the period of interpellation, so I now move that we open the period for committee amendments, Mr. President.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Pia Cayetano of the measure.
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm ready to present our committee amendments. On page 1, line 2, delete the word law and replace it with Act of 2014. So section 1 will now read as, this act shall be known as the Picture-Based Health Warning Act of 2014.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 2, line 4, insert picture-based on 3A read as to have picture-based health warnings that effectively warn of the dangers and exposure to secondhand smoke.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Thank you. On page 2, lines 6 to 9, delete signs or terms or any other direct or indirect means on or in packages that create or are likely to create a false impression of tobacco products, including but not limited to. And further on line 10, delete after mild and insert which convey or tend to convey light, ultralight, or mild, which convey or tend to convey that a product or variant is healthier, less harmful, or safer.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
On the same page, line 11, insert end after.
Is it on line 11 or line 12?
After the semicolon, we insert the word end on line 11.
Yes. Is it line 11 or line 12? Is it line?
It's line 11, Mr. President, because we have a clean copy in the old draft.
All right.
Thank you.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Thank you. On Okay, ready to resume, Mr. President. Section 7, 23 to 30, but specifically starting phrase including colors, images, or numbers or 23 all the way to the end of the section of section 7, which ends with signifying the same. Delete that whole.
That's on line 30.
Yes, 23 to 30, but starting from including.
923 starting with the word
Including colors,
and
images.
ending on line 30 with the word the same.
Yes.
This will be deleted. Any objection here? Approved.
And replace this with that claims or misleads a consumer to believe that a tobacco product or variant is healthier, safer, or less harmful.
Any objection here? Approved.
On the same page, line 32, between is and safer, insert the phrase healthier, comma, less harmful or.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Thank you. Next item, the following page, that's page 6, line 3, which is still part of section 7. Delete the period and insert semicolon, provided that for variants that use colors, images, or numbers as part of a brand name or trademark, comma, a textual warning to the effect that such brand or variant is not healthier, safer, or less harmful should be printed on the packaging together with the picture-based health warning as mandated in Section 5.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, I'd just like to put on record the explanation. There have been lengthy deliberations and consultations on this issue. I've always been clear about my concern that many times these types of descriptors are used to market a product as healthier or safer than the other variants. I continue to remain concerned about this, but in the interest of moving forward and focusing on the primary objective of the bill, which is to now include graphic health warnings, the committee submits that the general warnings will be now applicable, and that is what we have in the measure right now, Mr. President. So the next item is on the same page, lines 8, delete 4950 and replace it with 3219.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
And similarly, on line 11, delete 4950 and replace with 3219.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
This is also based on the same explanation I gave earlier about the existing shortest height and width in the market. Sorry, just to correct the record, height and length. On the same page, line 17, which is section 10, between the words manufacture and end, insert importers, comma, retailers.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 19, delete and insert imported between manufactured and distributed, and insert or sold after distributed.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 19 and 20, delete 120 days from the effectivity of this act and replace it with 1 year from the issuance of the template by the DOH. Non-compliant packages thereafter found in the market, on display, or for sale or distribution shall be subject to removal, confiscation, and/or destruction.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended for 1 minute.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed. Saan yung not okay then?
Okay. Mr. President, I'd like to explain. This is a concern raised by some senators on the floor and also submitted to us. We already made the implementation period. We extended it from 90 days to 1 year, and therefore we feel that this is more than enough time. We have looked at the data we have on the time it will take to change the templates, to get the new products in the market, and also to exhaust the products. And we feel that this is more than enough time for the manufacturers the manufacturers and distributors to comply with the new requirements. So within that period of the new implementation, the implementation of the new packaging should be more than enough time also to exhaust the existing supplies.
Yeah. Clarification from the chair, Madam Sponsor.
Yes.
The cigarette manufacturers has given a period of 1 year from the time the template is issued.
Yes.
To comply with the template. Now, how often can the template be changed? Is that somewhere in the bill, as we have discussed?
It's coming up in the succeeding sections.
All
It
right.
is an amendment we are also making, and we
Okay.
will also provide a graphic timeline
Yes.
to help our colleagues understand
Right.
the
Okay.
different
Thank
time
you.
frames. Thank you
Thank
also.
you.
So on page, we move to page 7,
Move to page 7, okay.
and we are now in section 14, line 9. Insert sections 5, 6, 8, 5, 6, 8, and
11.
5, 6, and 8, comma, and section 11 insofar as they are responsible for providing display materials that are in violation of, between, of, and this.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Mr. President, allow me to just explain this briefly. The reason we did this was to clarify the specific sections of which which provisions would be subject of criminal penalty.
5.
Section 5 is on mandating graphic health warnings. Section 6 is on the side panels. Section 8 is the minimum principal display. We effectively we're saying that Section 10, which is on the sales, is not specifically it's not a criminal, it will not be penalized criminally because of the concern that there may be difficulties in the far-flung areas. So that will remain an administrative violation, but not a criminal violation, Mr. President. Yeah. And then to further clarify, Section 11 is still included, and this is the section on display. And the reason for this is the provision on non-obstruction in the display of the tobacco packages. And this is included insofar as manufacturers or distributors are providing display materials. Because we know that many times they provide signages, display materials to their retailers. So to move on the same page, delete lines 10 and 11 and replace it with 1. On the first offense, a fine not less than 1 million pesos. Sorry, let me repeat that. A fine of not less than 1 million pesos, open, close parenthesis, 1 million in numbers, but not more than 2 million pesos, open, close parenthesis, 2 million in numbers, shall be imposed at the discretion of the court. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, delete lines 12 and 13 and replace it with 2. On the second offense, a fine not less than 5 million, a fine of not less than 5 million pesos, open, close, 5 million pesos in numbers, but not more than 7 million pesos, open, close, parenthesis, 7 million in numbers, shall be imposed at the discretion of the court, semicolon, end. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 14, delete more and replace it with less. And then on line 15, between the numbers 20 million in open and close paragraphs, and or insert but not more than 30 million pesos, open and close parenthesis, 30 million pesos in numbers. I submit.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 16, delete, comma, between court and the, and insert provided further, comma, that. Sorry. Let me repeat that, Mr. President. Insert, semicolon, provided further, comma, that. Submit.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page, line 24, delete the word batch and replace it with withdrawal.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, may I go back to line on same page 7, line 23?
Yes, proceed.
After the word citizen, insert or group. Period.
Sorry?
Or group.
Okay. Any objection? Hearing none, approved. Just a question before we proceed further.
Yes.
From the chair. First, the penalties are quite stiff, I must put on record.
We are open to amendment,
Yeah.
Mr. President. This is my best effort to make it a scary law.
All right, anyway, that's a matter for the body to decide. I'm just, now,
But also, Mr. President, sorry if I interrupt, but these companies make a lot of money. And what we've seen is, in many cases around the world, it's just easier for them to violate than to
I am not saying that
pay.
the penalties are inappropriate. I'm just saying it's
Yes,
stiff.
I agree, Mr. President.
Now, just a question. The penalties apply to manufacturers, etc. And then there are also penalties on the person. Are there penalties on the person, like imprisonment?
Mr. President, what we have is deportation for any foreign national who is a officer.
And what about
Imprisonment? None.
how about Filipinos? Filipino citizens. Where is that?
No, in the third offense, Mr. In the third
Offense.
for the third offense, Mr. President,
Yes.
that includes imprisonment of not more than 5 years, or the fine.
This is the imprisonment is imposed regardless of knowledge and is imposed because of the position.
We have a provision here, di ba? We have. Let me look for the provision on that, Mr.
Yeah.
President. Here, Mr. President.
Okay. That's the next one. Sorry, that's the next I mean, that's the subsequent paragraphs. Yeah, I withdraw the question. I think it will be treated in the subsequent paragraph. So please
Okay.
proceed, Madam Sponsor.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
On the same page, line 24,
What page are we now? Sorry.
we are on page 7.
Okay, please proceed.
Yes. Delete the word batch and replace it with withdrawal.
Any objection here and approved?
On the same page, line 24 and 25, delete the phrase that are withdrawn.
Approved.
Submit. On page 8, line 3,
On page 8, sorry.
line 3,
Page 8, line.
line 3,
Line 3, please proceed.
insert sections 5, 6, and 8 of this act insofar as they are involved in the display, offering for sale and selling of the covered products, as well as section 11 of, between the word of and this.
Any objection here and approved?
On the same page, lines 4 and 5, delete more and replace it with less, and insert but not more than 50,000 pesos, close open parenthesis, 50,000 pesos in numbers, between 5,000 pesos and shall.
Any objection here and approved?
On the same page, line 6, insert not less than, between of and 10, and after open close parenthesis 10,000 pesos in numbers, insert but not more than 100,000 pesos, open and close parenthesis in numbers.
Any objection here and approved?
On the same page, line 7, insert the word and after imposed.
Any objection here and approved?
On the same page, line 8, delete more and replace it with less. And then on line 9, insert but not more than 200,000 pesos, open close parenthesis 200,000 pesos in numbers, between open close parenthesis 20,000 pesos in numbers and or.
Any objection here and approved?
On page 8, line 23, a minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resumed.
After line 12, we will introduce an additional paragraph. On the same page, page 8, line 17, insert or group after citizen. On the same page, lines 24 and 25, delete, and every year thereafter or as frequent.
Here on line A, on page 8, line
Line 24 and 25,
24 and 25.
starting from on page 8,
Section
here from the issue next shall set. These new templates shall be valid for 2 years and so on. Submit. They want to, if you know, there's a little bit, just to make sure that it's clear, Mr. President. Mr. President, 30 and 32, delete the phrase, provided, however, that the absence of recommendation shall not, or guidelines are not necessary, but we feel that, you know, DOH should proceed and follow their timeline. So, on the next item, ready to resume, Mr. President.
session is resumed.
On page 9,
Okay.
delete lines 11 and 12.
Lines 11 and 12. Okay.
This is already covered by the
Yes.
timeline that we
Yes, yes.
we put into the record, Mr. President. Thank you. On page 9, is 1 to 18. This shall then be replaced with the following. The DOH shall promulgate rules governing the hearings on alleged violation of this act. The hearing shall be summary in nature and shall be conducted by means of position papers and affidavits. Any decision must be rendered no longer than 60 days. Parenthesis granted under Republic Act number 9711 and shall impose after notice and hearing and in accordance with the degree of the offense and the nature of the business of the offender, administrative fines of not more than 10 million pesos for any violation of this act, comma, the proceeds of which will be used for health promotion campaigns on tobacco control of the DOH, provided that manufacturers, importers, and distributors of tobacco products, as mentioned in Section 12 of this Act, a minute suspension. Mr. President, ready to resume.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with respect to this provision, may I leave it and go back to it because I have a correction here that it was not reflected in the provision.
Proceed any
Yes.
further. Just on page 9, in the paper, in the draft that was given to the chair, does the chair confirm that?
3 to 6, yes, Mr. President.
On
Line
page-
3. I proceed withdrawal and or destruction agencies and the managing authorities and the whenever necessary, local government executives and representatives of the national semicolon end. Subsection F, initiate, whether motu proprio or upon verified complaint, the filing of criminal charges for violations of this act. Then, a separate event
What?
shall not prevent the coming into force of the
Of administrative and administrative.
thereof.
Yeah, all right.
Mr. President, I would like to put on record that the administrative body in charge of the implementation of this law is the Department of Health under the FDA, which the tobacco manufacturers brought us that this bill eventually to become a law will not follow in the footsteps of RA 9711. Also, I submit that the provisions of 9711 were strong enough to ensure that, but next item on page 10, line 25. Delete comma, and on page 11, delete lines 1 to 6. That is the remainder. On record, Mr. President, this is an amendment to address the concerns raised in the period of interpellation. On page 11,
the committee will
a minute suspension, Mr. President.
suspended. Introduced by the committee. The deletion on page 11 was limited to lines 1 and 2. The lines 3 to 6, the chair does not request. The DOH shall have the power to punish the refusal, etc., up to line 6 was bracketed.
Yes.
So the chair is just
Yes.
clarifying whether or not.
We are deleting lines 1 to 6 of page 11. Amendment, which includes that's to reasonable The next item, Mr. President, is also on page 11, lines 21 to 23. Delete the same, and the reason for this is that the existing situation, legal situation will not.
All right. Any objection or none? Deleted.
Mr. President, a minute suspension. I would like to ask for a reconsideration of the previous amendment that I made, Mr. Starting from the words including colors, images, or numbers, all the way down to line 28 until the words hazards or emissions. That is the proposed deletion, Mr. President.
All right. Which means that
The phrase such as, Mr. President, line until or misleads a consumer
9 line
pesos for any violation of this act. The proceeds of